Hello! So today we're going to take a look at the Saab 340 in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. We're on the ground at Queenstown in New Zealand. So we're going to have a look around the aircraft on the ground first, then we're going to work through a startup procedure, a functional procedure that I've written up that cribs from the procedure within the simulator and then adds an awful lot back in that is missing in terms of just normal procedural things that a crew would do. So let's go and have a look at the airplane. You can see it's absolutely wonderfully modelled. So I think it's developed by Carenado for Asobo, so they've bundled it in with 2024. The only thing that's massively lacking in it is the guidance system. So you can program your route into the computer, but it doesn't seem to do much in the way of visualising the route. Whether that's missing or whether I'm just not understanding how the system works is another matter. But in the absence of good documentation, it's really difficult to know. So let's just have a look around with the drone camera, looking around the aeroplane. Let's come down underneath the wing, have a look around the undercarriage. So they've done a wonderful job modelling it. This is quite a departure actually for Carenado. It's by far the most complex aircraft I've seen them tackle. So it's no wonder they've been quiet for quite some time. So you can see there's quite a lot of covers around the airplane, so we'll have to do quite a good walk around to make sure we've caught them all. It's quite big, isn't it? So if we fly in through the rear of the fuselage, so if we come in through the window, maybe, if my drone piloting skills are good enough, there we go. So we can have a look down through the cabin. So we've got two seats one side, one seat the other. It's quite unusual. I guess because it's that intermediate size of cabin, it doesn't have room to make it symmetrical. So you've got the baggage overhead. But it does look very, very good. So if we go and fly through the wall here into the cockpit. So it's a glass cockpit or semi-glass cockpit. There's various switches and knobs, but yeah, the big difference to me for anything I've seen Carenado do before is there's a lot of systems on board. So we'll be working through them in order to start the aircraft up. As I said, the only really lacking thing is you do have an FMS down here. So I'm not sure how accurately modelled it is. There's a lot missing from it. And while you can put waypoints on, there doesn't seem to be a good way of seeing them on the HSI or the radar screen. But that might be my misinterpretation of how it might work. But again, like I said, without documentation, it's really tough. So I'm going to come back out of drone camera view. So Shift X takes us out. And then Shift and C will go to walk around. And we can go and walk around the aircraft. So we'll go and get rid of the chocks here and get rid of the covers on the pitot tubes. So we've got some engine covers over here to get rid of as well. Let's go and crouch underneath the wing. Will the avatar crouch automatically? He doesn't really need to. So that's taken the covers off underneath as well. So we're going to have a look around the back of the aircraft. Just walking as we go and having a look around, make sure there's no ribbons hanging that we've missed. Underneath the wing, round towards the other engine. No, that's all open. No more sensors covered up by anything, no more chocks. Okay, so Shift and C takes us inside the aeroplane. So let's go and work through the checklist together. It's not really a checklist, more of a procedure. So Shift and 8 will take us overhead. The aircraft does have good views pre-configured. Okay, so we're looking for the electric section first. So if you go and I'll show you around various sections first. So you've got ice protection at the top, you've got the heating, you've got the engine section here for the generators, you've got some of these are operative, some of them are inoperative. So you've got stab and wing de-icing, and then further overhead you've got the fuel, and then propeller, engine, interior lights, exterior lights, various test switches. Not sure how accurate some of this is. DC electric, and then you've got the batteries further down, electric power, cabin signs, and then further overhead we've got the environmental control system, really. So that's all there. A lot of it's on automatic, so Carenado must have had quite a tough deal with doing this aircraft, because they commonly strike a balance of trying to make airplanes more accessible. This is probably the least accessible aeroplane they've ever made. So yeah, we'll see how we get on with it. Anyway, so let's go and put the left battery and right battery on, so you can see the voltmeter jump up there when we put the batteries on. We're going to do this slightly out of order. We're going to put the bus tie to auto, so we should be able to lock that on as well. Then external lights at the bottom left, we're going to go and put the nav light to on. And then the DC electric section, so if I just zoom out slightly so we can see all these sections, so here's DC electric. We're going to go and put the essential avionics on, so that's ESS Avion is essential avionics. So cabin signs at the bottom right, we're going to go and put seat belts and no smoking signs on. And then on the central pedestal we press Shift and 5. And we're looking at the top left at the anti-skid comes to on, and the hydraulic pumps are already on auto, that's all good. Cabin pressurization section at the top right, we can rotate the A knob and you can pre-select your altitude. Okay, so we're going to leave that as it is. And you can change the rate as well, so you can increase or decrease the rate of pressure change in the cabin. So we'll leave all that. I'm not sure how accurately all of this works. It probably doesn't, but we're not going to go there. So then Shift and 1 takes us over to the primary flight controls. We're going to set the speed bug for takeoff. Again, this is just a reference number, so is it going to work? It's not actually going to work, is it? That's a bit of a shame. But we'll have a look at that another time. Shift and 8 takes us back overhead. We're going to go and put the beacon light on, so we're going to get ready to put the engines on. And then we're going to start the right engine. So looking overhead, we have to do several things one after another. So the engine section's right here. So we're going to flick the switch to the right. And then we're going to go down to the quadrant and we're going to advance the condition lever to min for the right engine. And we're going to go back overhead. Back on the engine section, we're going to hit ignition to norm for the right engine. Okay. And if we go and sit outside, we'll see the engine is spooling up. It's doing so remarkably quietly. Okay, so we just wait for the engine to come up. So I think, am I actually hearing? No, I'm not hearing what you're hearing. Okay, that makes it a lot easier. So back inside the cabin, we can go and do the left engine. So we go and flick this to the left. We go back down to the pedestal, we move this to min, go back overhead, and we hit norm on the ignition system for... They're a bit fiddly to get at. There we go. Now, was I too slow with that? No, it's done it. So we'll hear the next engine come up. So obviously you can monitor all of this inside as well on the instrument panel. You can see all of the gauges lighting up and all the needles whizzing around. Okay, so having started both engines, we're going to go back overhead and we're going to turn auto Corson on. So we're going to look for the propeller section here and we're going to go auto Corson on. Then DC electric, third column near the bottom. We're going to come down here, and we're going to go and put the LGen and RGen to on. And then the left avionics on and the right avionics on. Then back on the quadrant, we're going to advance both of the condition levers to max. So we're going to drag them up to the next detent. It's a bit difficult until you know where the detents are to know where to put them. Okay. So back overhead again, we're going to go to the ice protection section, and we're going to go and put the pitot on and turn on the window heaters. And you don't need, the propeller heaters are on norm by default, I think. So if you go and toggle these, they'll just go to max. So just leave them on norm, even though they're supposed to be a three-way switch. That doesn't appear to have been implemented. So Shift and 1 brings us down to the primary instruments. We can press comma to shorten our story of calibrating the altimeter. So it's got this weird mixture of glass and traditional instruments, which is a little bit odd. So press Shift and 6, we can go and look at the radios. So we can obviously tune the comm radios as required. And we can go to the TCAS. So we've got TCAS and ATC, so this is the transponder essentially. So TCAS will go and put on TA only, and ATC will put on to altitude mode. Okay, if we wanted to tune a number we can, it's fairly straightforward to do so. We're going to leave it alone. And then we're going to program the flight management computer, so this really isn't up to much. So we can accept the numbers on the first page. And this is the bit that I think is a bit, people are quite annoyed that this hasn't been really fully fleshed out. So we can go into flight plan, and you can see our first waypoint is where we have spawned on the sim, so we're at Queenstown in New Zealand. If we go and have a quick look, we could do a quick flight from Queenstown over to Milford Sound, so NZMF. So to do that, you go to the soft key, and then you can put in NZMF and press enter. And that will put it in, and it will confirm it, so you say accept, and that's in the flight plan now. Okay, so it says it's 40 miles away. Unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be a way, if we look up, of seeing that in any kind of visual way on the screen. So you've got radar nav here, where you can cycle through different modes, and it doesn't appear to show anything. So I'm not going to delve too far into why. So we're just going to fly a circuit in the aeroplane and, you know, do what we can. Okay, so having programmed a basic route in, we're going to go to the master control panel, or sorry, mode control panel, and we're going to set, this is where you could use the altitude pre-selector. So you could say if you were going to go up to 2,500 feet, this is where you would do it. And you've got the basic autopilot modes here. Yeah, so it's all pretty standard stuff. Having said that, where you set these conditions is actually back down here, look. So you've got the heading here, and you've got the pitch control, and you've got the autopilot master switch down here, unless you map it to something, obviously. But it's just to show that it's a bit spread out around the aeroplane. So although you set modes up here, you actually configure here, and then you monitor the instruments over here, so it's not easy. Okay, so we're going to prepare to taxi, so we're going to go and have a look at the controls. So on the front end of the pedestal, you can see there's a gust lock, so we're going to release the gust lock. We're going to put the flaps to takeoff condition, takeoff position, sorry. And then we're going to go back overhead. We're going to put the taxi lights on, so the external lights are down here, and we can go taxi lights on. And let's go and taxi out to the runway then. So shift and space will center our view up, or if we're clever and we've got head tracking working, we can press Alt and 7, and then we can look around the aeroplane that way and come off the parking brake. We're going to be a bit naughty here and not do a pushback. It's got a very good turning circle, so we should be able to turn without clipping the wing of the 777. It's a bit odd having a 777 come into Queenstown, isn't it? So let's go and taxi out to the runway. So the procedure that I've written up, very much a functional procedure. It adds a lot of bits that aren't in the aircraft procedure, but it also is missing things like, you know, being able to set the navigation up properly. And it also misses out a lot of the tests that a real crew would do, so it speeds you through quite a lot of it. So it runs to 7 pages instead of 17 pages, basically. So we don't need much of a runway run to take off with this, so we'll just pull up onto the runway over here. So yeah, I'll put a link in the notes of the video to the procedure, so if you want to play games with starting this aircraft from cold and dark, the instructions have all of the keyboard shortcuts in them. So if I just put the parking brake on for a moment, I can show you that. So if we go over here, so this is what the instructions look like. There's a full rundown of views within the sim, and then you get, you know, which button to press, where to look, what to change, all the way down through, and it goes all the way through the whole procedure of getting the airplane ready from cold and dark. Anyway, I think we're almost ready to go. So when we're lined up on the runway, the last thing we need to do is go and put the strobes on and the landing lights. Should we go and have a look outside and see what that looks like? Obviously it's bright sunshine, so you don't get to really see the plume of, or bloom of the lights, I should say. Okay. So, off the parking brake, flaps are set, everything's configured. Give the nose wheel a wiggle just to get a feel for it. We're rotating at about 80 knots. Okay, so gently rotate. There's a bit of a dip in the runway there, look, and the wind has just caught us. So there we go, we're up. So that's the klaxon telling us we're within 1,000 feet of our target altitude. So let's have a look from outside. I'm just going to turn the head tracking off for a moment. So it handles wonderfully. The only thing really that's missing is that navigation system. But again, that might be my misunderstanding at this point of how it should work. So let's go and go Alt 7, which turns on my head tracking, and we can have a look around. So the Queenstown area in New Zealand is absolutely spectacular in 2024. It looks photographic. So we're just going to do a quick loop around back over the water. So we'll go and buzz through the hills just to get a feel for the aeroplane and then bring it back in for an approach and a landing. But the real point today was just to show you how to start the aeroplane up. Quite how the navigation systems work is another question entirely. So hopefully there'll be some instructions from, or updates from Carenado in the weeks to come. But compared to anything they've developed before, this is just night and day. A far more complicated aeroplane. So trim works well. There's no way you would do this as a circuit in real life, by the way. So should we go the long way around? Have a bit of fun while we're in it. Make everybody feel sick. Let's raise the flaps, get some speed on, see how fast it will go. Let's open the throttles up. It accelerates very easily. So you can see we accelerated out from 140 to 180 in a matter of seconds, and we're just edging up towards 200 knots. This does look incredible, doesn't it? Okay, let's start managing the speed then, because we will be turning in for approach when we come back out over the water. Once we've landed, I'll have a little look at the throttle configuration, because it did take me a little while to get it configured in 2024, and I'll show you how I've done it. Okay, there's the runway. So while we're coming round the corner, let's just press Alt 7. And then backspace, and then let you see the animation of the gear coming out. Okay. Come back off the power and press, turn the head tracking back on so we can look around easily. So speed is bleeding off.
Minimums.
A little bit off the centre line, but for a first landing I'll take it. Just going to centre the view up. The head tracking has started to drift there, which made it more difficult than it should have been. So get the flaps up. I'm going to turn the head tracking off for a moment. So we'll leave the lights on until we get off the runway. I'm just going to backtrack. Doesn't seem to be many other people around. So let's try the reversers just for a moment. So can we actually go backwards? Yes, we can. You have to be very careful about how you pull the plane forwards again, otherwise you could tip it up. Okay, so landing lights back off, strobes off, and come off the runway. And we'll go straight ahead into that parking bay if nothing spawns in front of us. Hopefully it won't. Okay, so obviously to shut the engines down you can just pull the fuel to off and it will shut them down. But there's obviously a correct procedure to go through to do this properly, because we're going to lose power to everything the moment I do that, and we'll be relying on batteries which will be drained in moments with all the systems switched on. But I just wanted to show you very briefly how the aircraft works. So I promised to talk to you about the throttles, didn't I? So I've got the throttles configured, so you can see they hit ground idle on the notch on the thrust master controls, and then I can go to reverse. So what I had to do is go into settings, go to controls, so you can see I've got my throttle quadrant here. And if I go, I've got my own profile for the airplane, and I've set a basic setting for the throttles. So if I go and type in throttle on the search, and you will see that I have configured all of the throttles the same as each other, so it doesn't matter which ones, which airplanes I use with this profile. But if I come in, what I've done, before we do that, let's go back a section. So if I go back, I've done the throttle 1 axis 0 to 1, or all of the throttle axes, the 0 to 100% options. So within them, I have set the curve up so neutral is at 0.5, otherwise zeros, and I've reversed the axis. Okay, and I've done that for throttle 1, throttle 2, throttle 3, and throttle 4. Obviously, this plane only has 2 engines, but that means that profile will work for anything that's similarly configured in the sim, where you want the throttles to go beyond 0 into reverse. So the 0 to 100% tends to be what's used to do that. Okay, hopefully you've enjoyed that flight. So let's go and have a look outside. That was the Saab 340. As I said, the only thing that seems to be lacking is being able to visualize a programmed route. That doesn't mean it won't follow it, it's just a shame you can't see what you've configured. But other than that, it seems to be really, really good. It looks great, it flies really nicely. And yeah, we can obviously learn much more about it over the weeks and months ahead. So I will put a link to the functional procedure that I've written up in the notes of the video, and I'll see you again soon. Take care.